So super excited to be here and share my story with everyone. So let me tell you a little bit about who I am. So I graduated with both my bachelor and master's in computer engineering in the same year. I was offered to do my PhD when I was still doing my bachelor by my school. And I didn't know if I wanted to do a PhD. I also had a lot of responsibility at home. At the time, my mom used to live in Egypt and I was the older daughter. So I took the mom's role in the house. There was just so much going on. I was taking care of my siblings and just had a lot of responsibility at home that I didn't know if it would be possible to even add studying a PhD. And I did a few researches and then I kind of like decided that I want to go into the industry first and kind of see what it's like and develop things on my own and then decide if I want to do a PhD. But by the time I was done, I started taking graduate classes. By the time I was done with my bachelor, I was also done with my master's. I also took all the classes that was required for the master's at the time, and I had two graduations 2 days apart. I still remember the first graduation, my siblings had like posters, "We're so proud of you and congratulations." And then 2 days later, they had a poster like, "Enough graduations, retire." And then I finished the TU and I joined Intel as a software engineer. I was working on 5G, so I was working on coding an Intel chip that goes into the base station for 5G, and I loved it. But I knew like I wanted to do management down the road, but I thought the way I just do be the best software engineer on the team, from there be the tech lead and then engineering manager. I was always involved in a leadership committee, diversity and inclusion stuff. I just had so much passion for the culture of the company that I was working at. And my vice president who hired me at Intel was like, "Why don't you do program management? I think you're going to be a great program manager." And at the time, I had no idea what program management is. I was like, "Oh, I don't know what that is. Like, let me just go on and study what program management is." And I went on and I studied and I just fell in love. I was like, this is what I do. Like, I just love seeing the bigger picture. I was serving on the Technology and Telecommunication Commission in Austin, Texas, reporting to the mayor. I was overseeing projects that I was actually responsible for a part of the city, and how does that mean for all the tech companies that are coming into Austin, and how does that kind of like how they're putting anything into the city and how the people are reacting to that. So I was representing the whole part of that city. So I just love seeing the bigger picture. I loved interacting with people. I'm such a people person. So I just fell in love with program management. And then I got the offer to join Microsoft as a software program manager in March 2020. So I have been at Microsoft for a little over 2 years, which still feels crazy because it has been all remote. I didn't go into the office except my interview. So just absolutely fell in love with the culture. I worked on a lot of diversity and inclusion stuff with our VPs, and I totally loved the culture. And one of the things that I wanted to join Microsoft for was Satya and how he talks about like the empathy. He's one of the first people that introduced that into a culture of any company, and I always wanted to join Microsoft for that. And then when I joined, I'm such a workaholic and I had some free time that I didn't know what to do with. So I decided to go back and teach. So I've been teaching at New Jersey Institute of Technology, electrical and computer engineering classes. And one of the reasons why I wanted to go back and teach was just that when I was in school, I didn't have older siblings or someone that can guide me to what I'm supposed to do. And I was super lost. I knew nothing about the industry. I wasn't sure like how to get an internship, like is the research or an internship is better? Or what would I do in the interview? How to do my resume? Like what's in the industry that I can work for? So I didn't know much about that when I was in school, and I always wanted to go back and teach other girls and teach like all students like how to take advantage of what's offered for them in school, and but also how to connect with the industry and join companies like Microsoft and Intel and Google and all the big companies that really want them at the company, and also teach them like the most important thing that I wanted to go back and teach was how their diverse background is powerful. And just going back and like giving back to the students, but also empower them to be their true self, because that's what the industry want. Like when I was in school, like we were kind of like doubting ourselves and saying that like, oh, would they hire me as a hijabi, as a woman, as like a woman of color? But when I got into the industry is hungry for those diverse backgrounds, and it impacts the business like no others. And I have like some examples that I'll be sharing too. So that's a little bit of what I do, and that led me to be on the Forbes Under 30 list for this year for enterprise technology. And I also received the presidential award from the president of Egypt to be the most influential world youth of this year. And I wanted to just tell you why is it important for me to advocate for diversity and inclusion. And it all started when I decided to go for engineering, and my dad didn't want me to be an engineer. I had just passion for math and science since I was in middle school, and I always wanted to be an engineer before I even knew like what engineering was. Before Arab parents, they raise you to be two things and two things only. You're either an engineer, a doctor, or disappointment. So for me, I always wanted to do engineering because I knew like I just don't like med school. And for a lot of reasons, I just hate seeing people in pain. I just don't know, like, how am I going to survive, like, working in that industry? Like, sometimes I would go with my sister to just get a blood test, and she is doing the blood test, but I would faint. So I it was not me at all. And they didn't even touch me, but I didn't see myself being a doctor at all. But my love for math and science just made me think like I want to be an engineer. I didn't know what kind of engineer, but I want to be an engineer. But when it was time for me to declare my major, my dad didn't want me to be an engineer, and he thought that engineering is not for girls. And if I decided to do engineering, then it will not gonna do me a favor when I graduate, and I'm not gonna find a job, and the type of work is not for a girl, and the industry is just a male dominated field, and it's just not a place where he wants his daughter to be. So we kind of were in arguments and fights, and he tried all the different ways to try to talk me out of engineering and make me switch into med school. And I almost like I knew like I wanted it and had so much passion for, but at some point I was looking at examples that look like me, and I didn't see any. I was like, maybe he's right. Maybe that industry is just not for girls, and if I decided to go, I'm not going to be successful in it. Because I didn't just see anyone that looked like me that was successful. I was just looking at examples, and they're all guys. Look at the CEOs, and they're all guys. And at the time, I was like, oh, maybe he's right. And I actually changed my major from engineering to pre-med, and decided that this is like, if I'm the oldest daughter and I want him to be proud, and I'm not seeing any people that look like me that are successful in the field, maybe he's right, then just do something else. And I switched my major, and I lost all the credits for the classes because I was signed up for all the engineering classes. And then at the time, the lady at the university told me to just drop all the classes because they're not going to make sense if I switch my major, and all the classes at that time were awful. So I decided that I'll just wait for that semester and then go register for the pre-med classes the semester after. And I spent that semester just trying to think of how my life would look like as a doctor, just seeing people in pain all the time and being at hospitals and seeing blood and all of that was just so not me. So I went back to my dad and I was like, you know what, Dad, like, I'm really sorry, but I'm switching my major back to engineering. Like, I just don't see myself being a doctor at all. And I switched back to engineering and I was just so good. I was passionate about what I was doing. I was always a straight A+ student. And every time I would come back to my dad and tell him like, oh, like I had that engineering test and I got an A+, and then he was like, oh, okay. Like he was just not proud to have me in engineering. He was like, oh, but your cousin is a doctor or someone else is a doctor. And I was like, oh my God. So I just spent a lot of years trying to tell him like I'm doing really good, like this is something that I'm passionate for, but he wasn't really convinced that that's something that I would be successful for or in down the road. So I kept on going. I truly enjoyed it. Like if I would take like math problems and engineering stuff, just doing them on my own, like watching TV, that was just so much fun. I was like, I just love studying. I don't mind just spending hours at the library or weekends, and I just fell in love. And I kept on going. I then got offered by my school to do the PhD, and then my dad was like, oh, like I think she's doing good. I guess like he was convinced that I was like almost getting successful in that field. And when I did graduate with the 2 degrees, I had 10 different offers from all the different companies because it's not the usual to have the 2 degrees in the same year, and there were only, I think, few people across the country that did that. So it was something that all the companies want, and whenever I did any interview, I was just so good that they just wanted to offer me. So every single interview that I would go for, I would just get the offer. And I had like a lot of different offers, and I decided to do what was closer to what my master's was in, which was networking. And that was Intel, working on 5G. So when I went to the industry, how does that translate to the industry? So in school, I still remember my first semester. I was sitting in a class and then the professor came in and he said, you were not here last week, which was the first week, which was the week that I was visiting my mom in Egypt. So I was like, yeah, I'm very sorry. Like I was visiting my mom in Egypt, and that's why I missed the class last week. He was like, I know, like you were not here because I'm teaching 4 classes and none of them have a single woman. And I was like, okay, I guess my dad was right. And at the time, like I knew, like I was seeing the ratio of women. We were just 7% in school, 7% women, and that 93 of men, and the ratio was just like not even any close. So at the time, I just fell in love with just representing women in tech. I was like, okay, we are 7%, but I'll show you what that 7% can do. So I just tried to like outwork everyone in the school. I wanted to be as successful as all the other ones and even more. Like they were my competition. I was like, okay, you're all guys, but I can do this. I can do even more than you can. And I would just outwork everyone I would meet. And when I went to the industry, when I joined Intel, it was still the same problem. I was like, oh my God, like my team was 12 engineers. It was only 2 girls. It was me and another lady. And at Intel, they had like the culture is a little bit different than what we have here, but the numbers were so low of women. So and even minorities, like as the whole industry, I was looking at like I went to the industry and I was like, why is that? Like, why is minorities, the numbers are so low? Why women's number are so low? And I started just reaching out to vice presidents and directors, and I want to like fix that problem. I was like, what are we doing wrong to see those gaps? Like, why are people like the retention, the number of women, and how that retention is just like we're losing them. Like we barely hire that many women, and then the if you look at the retention or like the number of years that they stay is not that low, it's not that high, and it was super low. So I wanted to know like why was that. So I reached out to a lot of vice presidents and directors, and they even formed like a leadership committee where I was the only individual contributor on that committee, just to try to see how would we attract diverse candidates, how would we retain that, how is the culture is going to look like. And I just fell in love with just doing that type of work, and that's what led me to do. I was even sponsored by the CEO at the time at Intel to work on that. And I feel there is a lot of great things that comes from diversity in tech, and it involves it absolutely have a business aspect that even gets into the revenue of the company and how inclusive the technology or the product that we make. And that's something that I just was working on. And speaking of like why it is important, I even saw like few products that companies were doing, and just because the team that developed that product was not diverse enough, the product was not selling at different parts of the world. So I looked at like a few different products that were just not selling, or they were like high at different parts of the world, but other parts they were not as much. And I was like, why is that? And I talked with people that were responsible for developing that product. And just because that team, like, for example, like one of the products, the team did not have like an agent engineer on the team, the product was not selling in Asia at all. Like the numbers were so low. And if they even if they had like one engineer that was Asian, they would tell them why that product won't work for them. And that would make the revenue and the market in the Asian countries super high. So that product lost a lot of people because when they're developing it and when they're making it, they didn't have someone to tell them like, oh, that would work for me, like that would not work for someone who's Asian, or that would not work for someone who speaks Arabic or any of the other backgrounds. So it absolutely involves the development of the product, it affects the market where you're selling that product is, and the money that you're getting back. So companies really want to have diverse backgrounds to evolve those products that they're making and selling it everywhere and have them accessible to everyone in the world. So with that, what you can do, so there are a few different things that you can do. And for me, I know like everyone have the knowledge of their heritage, and they know like that group of the culture, the background, everything, you know, everything about your group. So start making those communities across Microsoft, external, even external, creating those communities to mentor others. Just know that you're at a great place, like just working at Microsoft and the culture that we have here. God have you here for a reason, and you're here to just help other people. You're here, and a lot of you have so much power that others want to like they look up to you and they want to know, like, how did you make it here, and how did you make it at Microsoft, and how's the culture at Microsoft, and know that you have like a really powerful voice that can help other people that want to be at that place and they want to break into tech, or little students, little girls. And a story, or I'll leave that at the end because I know like that's one of the questions, but girls are not encouraged, like from different backgrounds. Like I know Hispanic or like Arab or Middle Eastern or Black, like those minority groups are not encouraging girls to be in technology. And that's why you'll see a lot of organizations want to like talk to like those little girls. I know like they're not getting as much support from the parents to even break into technology. So that's where you want to kind of like look at those groups and see how you can start early in their careers and just break them into tech and show them that you're here, you're successful, you are working on a lot of like great, cool things that goes into the world. So know your background, know what group you're passionate about, and start doing those community groups and mentor those little people, like even interns that we get at Microsoft. And one of the things that I do here at Microsoft, and I feel that this is helping so many people, is just engaging in the difficult conversations. And we started a D&I learning club with our VP, so that's the WDX, or Windows Devices and Experiences. And we started that learning club to engage in those difficult conversations. We want to bring on conversations about Black people. We want to have conversations about women and what does it mean for them to be here, any biases that they face, anything that we can work on to even evolve or revise those policies that we have. So groups like that, engaging in this difficult situations, or have people kind of create that open and inclusive environment for people to feel open to share their experience and tell you what they experience and what as a group you can do is just so important. And also mentoring people across the company and outside is so important. I always feel that we have a voice that people want to hear, and people want to take advantage of what we do here at Microsoft. So yeah, so I wanted to also share the pillars of inclusion. So the inclusion has seven different pillars that we should always try to think about when we're trying to hire diverse backgrounds, but we want them to feel inclusive in the culture that we have. And that is first, allowing them to have access to the company, to different groups, different projects. So have that access so they can explore what's the importance of welcoming them into the environment. And then the attitude is how you as a team are allowing people to feel welcomed, or allowing people to be themselves. So what's that attitude of the group? And then the choice for them to know, like, what's the opportunities that they have, what's the communication, what's their policy. So their choice to be here at the company and be their full selves. And then the partnerships that you're allowing those people to partner up with the organization or different parts of the company. And then not everyone have the same communication plan or skills, so you have to understand the people in your team and how that communication is is for them and for their health or their mental health. How is that communication across the team, and are they open to just tell you everything? What's the best way for them to know, for you to know how they feel? And then understanding the policy of the company. There are a lot of policies around the companies, but you have to be mindful of how those policies are interacting with the people, or how those policies are affecting people in the community. Not all policies can be like 100% solid, that they can be changed. There are policies that can be revised. There are policies that don't work for everyone, so you have to be mindful of that. And then show them the opportunities. What's the opportunities across the company? Have them be open to know what's out there that is open for them, and what are the opportunities they can take across the company, not just be locked in where they are. And I know, do we still have time? I'm gonna check the time.
Yeah, we have plenty of time.
We've got time.
Awesome. So I wanted to leave time for questions, but the other thing I also wanted to talk about was just the ways to promote that diversity. So you have to be aware of the biases that can happen. Have the communication of like the importance of managing that bias, and how does that affect people. And one thing that I love to just think when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, that everyone is different, and all the different backgrounds kind of have a different story or a different need than others. And when you're talking about diversity and inclusion, you want to understand, like, what does it mean for everyone, not just like a certain group, and how does it mean to be inclusive to that group, and put yourself in the shoe of others and feel the need, and talk to them and open up floors for them to kind of share what they're experiencing and how they're feeling, how that is inclusive or not, or behaviors of other people, and promote like even like the little things to feel people, or feel that people feel inclusive. Just like I would say, like the smallest things, like just acknowledging their holidays, be there for them, always feel that you have responsibility towards everyone around you in the company, acknowledging how they feel, how is their background is, their religious holidays, be with them through everything, and like ups and downs. And I would absolutely encourage people to just create like those small groups, even if it's just like your direct teams. And if you have like one, not a moral event, but like a day that you just come up together and just share how you feel, share what's the things that are bothering you, what's things you want to change in the culture, what's something that you can all work on. That's something super powerful, and something that will change the culture to improve it as much as you want to, mixing up your teams with that. And I know we probably have like 15 minutes. I wanted to have the questions from the audience and also connect with people. So I'm on LinkedIn or Instagram, so I'd love to connect with you. And I'll open it up for questions for the rest of the time.
Hi, yeah, thank you for that wonderful presentation. We do have a couple questions.
Sure.
We have lots of people in the questions saying that Microsoft is so lucky to have you.
Aw, thank you.
And then we have our
I'm
first
so
question.
lucky to be working with everyone here. There's such a great, super talented, brilliant people at Microsoft, and I'm so happy to be part of that.
Yeah, they are lucky to have you. So the first question is, what role did your family play in your success?
So in the beginning, so I had a lot of, like, when I was starting my engineering career, everyone didn't want me to be an engineer. They're like, why don't you be a doctor? Like you have like a 4.0 GPA, like that allows you to be a doctor, that allows you to be a pharmacist, or like any of the medical field that I just didn't have passion for. So in the beginning, they kind of didn't believe like what I was doing was right. But once you get to a point to prove like, oh, like she knows what she's doing, and she's successful doing that, they started encouraging me, like, why don't you work at that company? Why don't you do that? Why don't you speak at that conference? So they were always supporting, but even though like it took time for them to like kind of know what that engineering is the right field for me. Don't like, I know like other minority groups face that too. So I feel like if you just know that you're doing what you're doing is right, just be consistent and keep going, even if that means like you're alone. And once other people like see like you've reached something, they're always going to be there for you, and kind of changing what they're thinking too.
Thank you. And then the next question is, as a person of color working to transition into cybersecurity, I'm an aspiring security operations analyst. It has been difficult finding a mentor in the field. Did you or do you have a mentor, and can you offer some recommendations about how to find a mentor?
Yeah, so there was something called Career Jam. I don't know if we still do that, but when I started at Microsoft, there was something called Career Jam where you go on a tool, and then you see a lot of people and what they're known for or what they mentor for. And from there, you can just book one of them and put something on their calendar. So that was super helpful, but I don't know like if it was for all the different teams, but please look it up. It's called Career Jam. And I would just have like managers or directors or even VPs on that, and they would say like, I want to mentor people in those areas, and it was really nice to know like the areas that they have passion for or strong in or have worked on. So that was something that helped me to connect with people across the company. But other than the Career Jam, I love people. And when I just go to a meeting where I see someone talking about something that I want to be, or like at a place where I want to be, like I would just reach out, and don't be scared to reach out. People at Microsoft, they even reach out to people that report to Satya, and they were so nice to just talk to me. So when you think of someone at a place where you want to be, I feel that's the best mentor that you would have, because he or she had gone through all the different areas that, or all the stages that you will be going through. And that's the best person to reach out to. Either that is up your management chain or someone else that you have seen at different events or meetings across the company. Just don't be scared to reach out, or even on LinkedIn. Sometimes I would see someone on LinkedIn posting something, and I would just like, oh, I want to talk to that person. Like, he has a lot of great skills that I want to learn, and I would just reach out to them. Like, I'm just inspired by what you do, or I saw that post or saw that meeting, and I want to talk to you and learn from you. And people are always open to just help others and just mentor others. And believe it or not, like, they always want to talk to you because they're learning something too. Like, you feel like you're finding a mentor for you to just learn, but but they also learning so much from you too, and they are at that place to help you. So just feel free and empowered to reach out to people that are at the place where you want to be.
Thank you for that great advice. I know the mentor question is a big question for a lot of people on the diversity webinars. I have a question about do you have any advice for how to make yourself stand out in the application process? Whether it's applying for a job or even applying for like an accolade, like the 30 under 30.
So I just did it, but I wasn't sure if I was doing it right. But sometimes you don't feel that you have enough. Well, one of the advices that I got from my vice president that hired me into Intel, and the one that kind of put me into program management when I was a software engineer, he told me, like, if you have 60% of the job requirement, apply for it. Like, you don't have, like, sometimes I would look at a job requirement or anything that I'm applying for, and I feel like I don't fit into all the bullet points that are there. But if you only have 60%, you're qualified. He said, like, if you applied to that job and you're the only one that applied, they don't have any other applications. They're going to give you the job even if you don't meet all the requirements. And if other people that are applying don't only have 50% and you have 60, you're going to get the job. So just believe in yourself and just don't underestimate your power, and don't judge yourself that, like, don't take a step back and say, like, I don't meet all of the requirements. Just do it anyway. The worst case scenario is just getting a no, which is okay. At least you tried. So when I'm also doing an application, I try to think of everything that I do, even if it's not, like, if it's the extra curriculum. So I am a program manager, but I do a lot of diversity and inclusion on the side, which is not part of my job, but it's an important thing that I have passion for and I'm making an impact in. So I put that in the application, even though it's not directly my job requirement, but you'll have a lot of things that you do that you don't even notice that you do them. But when you're putting an application, think of all the small little details that take up from your day, and things that you're passionate for, community service, any, like, volunteering, any mentoring if you mentor people. So put everything that you do, even though that it's not directly the full-time requirement of your job, the things that you do, the extra curriculum, the things that make you who you are should be on the application.
Thank you. That was a really great advice. Let's see if we have any other questions here. I think, Valen, you had a couple questions.
Of course. Hi, Dina. Thank
Hi.
you. Thank you so much for being our guest today and for sharing your amazing story. So I was reading over your Forbes magazine article, and by the way, great article. One of the many powerful comments in there of yours that struck me as a dad of two girls is your comment of the reason you enjoy serving as a professor is to support raising a generation of fearless women. Could you please touch on that a bit more?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that question. So when I'm teaching a class, I try to have that class more of the industry. So first thing I did, like, cancel the homework. There's no, like, I don't understand why people have homework. Cancel the attendance. So I tried to have my class more of the industry. I don't want people to just come to the class where they just feel they have to be here because I'm taking attendance, and they have to be here because I'm doing like a homework. I want them to learn, and I want them to learn of what they're going to do at the industry. I want them to learn how to apply for internships. How is that internship going to look like? What kind of projects they can work on? I want them to be able to present a product or a project that they're working on in a just professional way. So I changed the way that the whole class was organized or was taught before. And what I noticed was the girls in the class, like even when they do like presentations, they're always like so shy. They always like doubting themselves. I'm not too sure if I'm doing it right. Like they're even like their voice, they're just like super soft voice that people even can't hear what they're saying. And I know that that's because like the ratio of women is just super, super low. And when I'm teaching a class of 65 students, I only have 2 or 3 girls in the class. And I always feel that they're not empowered to be who they are, and they feel like, oh, like I'm the girl in the class, I'm not too sure if I'm doing it right, like, and they're doubting themselves, and that on its own is just a problem that I wanted to solve. And I want, like, when they're doing a presentation, there's just like super soft voice. The guys can't hear them. They're just talking about something else. And I was like, guys, like, you need to be respectful to the girls. And I want the girls to speak up. I want the guys to just pay attention. And I want them to be confident of who they are and the product that they worked on. And that's something that I've noticed with the girls. I wanted to have to believe in their power. I want them to know that the industry want them as they are, that we want to hire women. We want that different background. We want the diverse background that's powerful. That affects the job, it affects the revenue of the company, the business, everything else. So I always wanted to just teach them to be fearless. I want them to be confident about what they do. Even if they made a mistake, like that doesn't matter. Like they can fix it as the guys, but the guys usually own that. But the girls are just shy, like, oh, I'm sorry that I made a mistake. I don't want you to be sorry. I want you to be fearless, to own even that mistake. If you didn't make it this time, you'll make it the next time. And that was just what I absolutely love about teaching, just empowering those students to be who they are and to own everything they do.
Great, thank you for that. So an FD here at Microsoft, and then university professor, and then this year at the World Youth Forum, you have been honored with an award for being one of the most influential world youth. And so the award was presented to you by the president of the Arab Republic of Egypt. And I'm thinking this must put some great responsibility on you to further support your community and millions of youth across the world who believe in you. How are you handling this pressure?
Totally. It's a lot of responsibility. So I always have, I just did what I have passion for and what I believe was right and what I wanted to work on. And that has always been empowering women, empowering youth, and just advocating for diversity and inclusion, and be successful in everything I do, just to prove to other girls they can do it too, and to prove to diverse candidates that you can be at that place and you can be working on those products and you too can be successful. And I never thought I would ever stand with a president on the same stage. And when I went to that conference, I didn't know, like I was meeting the president. They just invited me to be a speaker. And then I was surprised that my session was with the Minister of Information Technology. And I was like, oh my God. And it was just a lot of pressure. And then they said the president is going to come to that session and just hear me talk about technology and about developing that generation of fearless people and the metaverse and a lot of like other things related to technology. And I was just so surprised that that it was going to be with the minister and then the president, and then I was surprised. It was just a lifetime experience for that conference, and then the first lady invited me to do dinner, and I just went, and I just didn't imagine any of that, and then I was surprised with that award the last day of the conference, and it just made me realize that when you work on something that you give your energy to, and you just know that that's what you want to do, and that's what like, we're all here in this life for a reason, and I feel like that with everything I do and every place that or role that I am in, I feel like God is putting me in that place for a reason. And with everything I've done, like, I've always felt that my reason is to empower others and serve the community and empower those young generation. And when you do that, it just, people around you notice it, if it's Forbes, if it's the president or anyone else. And I feel that it has put a lot of pressure and responsibility on me, that with everything I've done, like, the world is expecting me to do more. I want to reach as many people as possible and help communities and empower women and youth. And there's no time to, like, do anything wrong. I have a lot of responsibility to serve others, and I am very thankful and blessed with those opportunities, but it's just putting a lot of responsibility that I want to do more, and I want to help even more people.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Back to you, Ashley.
Yeah, we do have one last question here. It's a good question. Any advice for industry recruitment for hiring diverse candidates? What can we do to better attract diverse new hires?
So things that attract people is just seeing examples of the company and what they do, and examples of people that work at the company. And something that I saw a lot of companies do that, and I remember talking about that with some of the VPs at Microsoft. I see one thing is just seeing an example that look like people, like diverse candidates. And I'm not too sure if we do that or not. But I see a lot of other companies that put, like, on social media, they highlight people, like diverse candidates on their social media, and they tell their story. And for diverse candidates looking at social media of a big company, and they see someone that looks like them, and they see, like, oh, like, they were working on this, and that, and that's how they got here, is just so powerful. Because that gives them hope, that gives them motivation, that gives them power to feel that, oh, I can get to that place and I can work at that company. So that's something super important. I'm not too sure if Microsoft does that. I know, like, we do sometimes articles, but I haven't seen anything on our social media like other companies. So that's something I feel is so powerful. Just sharing stories of diverse candidates across Microsoft with the world, and how does that look like? The other thing is just going to universities and conferences and talk about the importance of diversity and inclusion. Like, we want to hire them, but we want them to also know that how is the culture at Microsoft? What are we doing for that inclusive environment? And that also helps. There is also events that, like, we do here. I'm so thankful that we're sharing that outside as well, because that helps people to know what happens inside the company and those stories of people that work at Microsoft that totally helps when they hear that externally.
Thank you. Great advice. So thank you, Dina, for being our guest today, for an excellent presentation and for answering all of our questions. At the same time, I would like to remind the listeners that the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements is to visit our landing page at aka.ms/security-community. And while there, you'll find easy ways to navigate and find the resources and learning content relevant to our security products and their communities. A good start would be browsing our bite-sized product videos, ninja trainings, recordings of past webinars, GitHub communities, and more. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. Please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback. Thank you, and see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you, Ashley. Thanks, everyone.